Hello and welcome to the video. I hope you are having a fantastic day. My name is Dylan. I read books. I like to think of myself as a wizard, but I often space out while reading books. But I like to think I've paid enough attention to tell you a little bit about the books that I've read. So today we're doing my fantasy ranking tier list, going over all the fantasy series I've ever read. So you'll notice this list is pretty short. I haven't read enough fantasy as I should have. I'm rectifying that every single day, reading more books, discovering more series. And I just want to jot down what my current thoughts are now so we can do this again in a year's time and see how my thoughts changed and see what series we can add to this. Starting off, we've got Lord of the Rings. Now, I had a great time with my Lord of the Rings read, but I watched the movies so many times first that when I eventually got to the books and had watched too many reviews first, I knew everything was going to happen in the books, and I've watched the movies so many times that the books didn't leave the same impression on me that they would have for a lot of other people that were reading it for the first time before watching the movies, or were reading it for the first time not knowing what happens in the books differently to the movies. But I still enjoyed it a lot. It's a world I love. It's a world I'll always love, but not to the same extent that some other people will have. Sorry, I was just checking if I put the camera on record. I often forget to. But yeah, still great book, great B tier. Harry Potter, yeah, I can't believe it. I also watched the movies first for this one too, and I also only read it for the first time last year. But I again had a great time with it, and probably enjoyed it a little bit more than I did The Lord of the Rings. Then, oh look, we've got another show which I watched first before reading the books. But I only watched the first season before reading the books. The Witcher. Oh, I had a really good time with The Witcher. But again, didn't leave much of an impression on me. I can't remember too much of it. So we'll chuck it in B tier as well. We'll probably put it in between the two. So next we've got the most recent one I read. So this is Godkiller. This is book one of The Fallen Gods by Hannah Kaner, which just recently came out. And this one's set in a really creative world where gods can rise up wherever a need or a want or a desire is for something. So, for example, if you have a broken shoelace and you're like, oh, I really need someone to fix my shoelaces, and there's enough want for that, and there's enough people willing to sacrifice for that, a god can rise up. And these gods can cause trouble for people. We have god killers in this world that come and stop those gods and kill them, collecting their levies. So, such like a witcher. And in this story, we get to follow a young noble girl who's got something going on, who needs help from someone more versed in the gods. We follow a god killer who lost everything to the gods and now is getting her vengeance one god at a time. And we're also following a retired knight as he's called back into service to help his king one last time. It's a great time. Definitely a series I would recommend. And I think we've got another B tier book. I can't put it above any of those ones in particular, but it was a great time and I definitely recommend it. Next, we have The Poppy War. Grim, dark, military fantasy, coming of age, lots of Chinese history, dark, hard to cheer for characters. It's so well written, but the magic is so OP. I don't know what to think of this series. I love the writing. I love the emotions the writer was able to get out of me. The story was dark, and the magic was to emulate what I'm assuming was bombs, and it's just so destructive. It took me out of the story, but it really came with a cost. So I think this is like an A tier book series, but for enjoyment, it wasn't as high. We might move it to B. So incredible series, just my enjoyment of it wasn't as high. Looking next, we've got Aragon, The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini, and this is basically Star Wars in a fantasy world, with a YA sort of modern writing style, with all the good classic fantasy tropes, coming of age, dragons. We might give this an A. It's very on par with those books below it, but for me it was just a little bit higher and I loved it. It's what really got me into fantasy. So next we have the Broken Empire trilogy by Mark Lawrence. I've read 2 or 3 books, had a great time, and you know what? We're going to put it in A. Or it should probably go top of B. But yeah, it was just very short, grimdark, 10 to 15 hours, one singular POV, a morally ambiguous young man on his rise to power. Just Prince of Thorns, King of Thorns, Emperor of Thorns is the titles of the books. We just get to see him rise. We get flashbacks to his past to see his character growth. And I'm there for it. Short, fun novels, and we just get to see someone grow and get more powerful. It's a breath of fresh air. We can get a shorter book, considering so many of these books here just take forever to read. It's nice to get something shorter. Next, we have the Bloodsworn Saga, and this is the series that got me back into reading fantasy as an adult. I saw that cover in the bookstore. It's just so pretty, so stunning. I had to get my hands on it. I sat down with it and didn't get up until I pretty much finished it. I read it so quick compared to any other books I'd read at the time of reading it, and I fell in love with John Gwynne from that point onwards. Definitely, if you haven't read John Gwynne and you want classic fantasy with a modern voice, check out The Faithful and the Fallen. And if you want Vikings, epic battles, following around the Viking warbands after Ragnarok, definitely check out the Bloodsworn Saga. And then now we have our first S tier. We have Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff, book 1 of what's going to be a trilogy. Book 2 has just come out today, which I'll be reviewing soon. I've read this book twice now. It's incredible. It's fun. We've got vampires. We've got a world where the sun now doesn't fully come out for some reason we don't understand. And vampires have risen up and now have their own empire, and humans are very, very on the brink of just existence. There's not many left, and we've got one guy left, Gabriel de Leon. He's a silver saint. He is a member of a church guild of warriors with special abilities to fight back against the vampires. In book 1, we get to see him in a jail cell telling his story to a vampire as a prisoner, and that's how we get the book. His recounting of his life and how he got to where he is now. It's just so good. Now we have The Ranger's Apprentice, the book series that got me reading fantasy. Just elite characters and the best characters to grow up with, especially when I was shorter and smaller as a kid. Having a character who was undersized, working hard and doing things to be a high achiever in life, and just medieval spies. Fantastic. Great series. Mistborn Era 1 immediately goes to the top of A. This was another series that I read straight after I read Shadow of the Gods, and it is the one that got me into reading like Brandon Sanderson and all the modern fantasy series. So I read the Bloodsworn Saga, then I read Mistborn, and I was fully hooked on just reading every single day then, reading fantasy that is. The twists, the world building, the plot, elite. All right, now we have the First Law trilogy, which I've only read 2 books of so far, and it's going bottom of A. I had a really good time with book 1, especially with the writing style, the wit, the humor, the darkness. It's very much someone who is inspired by Game of Thrones, but read their own thing. The characters are great to spend time with. There was a plot line in book 2 that I really didn't enjoy, so that's why it's dropped for me. But I'm pretty sure that as I continue to read, as I get to the next book, this will be an S tier. But I was just disappointed with Before They Were Hanged. Now we have another S tier series. We have A Song of Ice and Fire. We don't need to say anything about this. It's so popular for a reason. I do not care that it's not finished. I'm going to recommend it. It is an incredible series. It doesn't have to be finished. I've got so much enjoyment from the books that we already have out. It's just incredible. Now we have the Stormlight Archive. This is one that will definitely get finished. Brandon Sanderson does plot and world building on a insane level. His plot work is insane. His world building is super creative and fresh. The characters in this one I really connect with. I love Kaladin. He's definitely just my favorite character that Sanderson's done. And again, not one we have to say too much about, because Stormlight Archive is as popular as it is for great reason. Next up, we have The Demon Cycle by Peter V. Brett. And again, this is another very elite series. This is something I read about 6 years ago, and it still sticks with me. The characters were top tier. We're in a world where at night demons rise out of the ground and you have to hide behind your wards if you don't want to die. So this world is mostly just big cities, very spaced out, spread apart, very separated. And then there's small country towns where the population is just trying so desperately to survive. But demons are really have a much easier time getting through their wards than they do with the wards that protect the big cities. We get to follow someone who discovers a way to fight back against the demons. And in doing so, introduces the world to easier ways to travel and to get around, because now you can fight back against the demons. You can move around. You can be outside at night, and you can now get from place to place. So now all these countries that were once separated by the demons at night, not making it easy to travel, can now fight against each other. So there's global conflict between the different countries whilst the demons are still there, causing so much trouble. I love this series so much. There was just one thing at the ending that I didn't love, but I'm very tempted to put this S tier. A lot of people don't love it, but you know what? Oh, no, we'll leave it. So next up we have the Red Rising trilogy. So good. Each book was better than the last, but Red Rising, the second era of it, S tier. Absolutely elite. More POVs, darker, just it's everything I wanted the Star Wars sequels to be that they weren't. It's the Emperor, the Death Star, it's blown up, but you've still got the rest of the Empire to bring down. You now have to bring up your own political system. So you have to take out the remaining empire, you have to build up your own, and you have to actually have some sort of civil agreement between everyone. That's not easy to do, and this series shows that so well. So dark, so expansive. It's just excellent. You have to check out Red Rising. Next up, we have A Court of Thorns and Roses, Sarah J. Maas. Mid is the word. It's just, there's no plot. The romance is okay. It's good. The characters are good. But it's just mid. Yes, I love some of the characters, but there's nothing special with this series. Emperor's Soul. It gets a lot of good ratings. It was okay, I guess. I can't really remember it, to be honest. So just gotta put it in C. Fourth Wing, there needs to be something lower than D. This is just garbage. I'm sorry to people that like Fourth Wing. The plot and the world building is definitely good, but Violet, the main character, 1 minute she'll be whining, saying how weak she is, how hopeless everything is, how close to dying she is, and then the next minute she'll be overconfident, thinking she's a badass, and licking her lips, looking at someone's abs. And she goes back and forth between those two modes so quickly. It's just so annoying. She's so whiny. She's so whingy. And now I'm whining and whinging about her. I don't know why she's so popular. I think people read this book and put their own voice in her. They don't actually listen to her as a character. They think of her as themselves and think of her much more highly than if you were to just think of her as herself and not as yourself. Next up, we have The Wheel of Time. Yeah, it's great. It's expansive. I've only read 6 of the 14 books and I am loving it. I'm invested in it. The women drive me crazy. And next up, we have The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. Another incredible series. John Gwynne writes the best battle scenes, the best action, writes characters that you want to be friends with and hang out with, and he also writes villains that you're going to despise and hate. The Faithful and the Fallen is his best series to date, but Of Blood and Bone, which follows it up, is a very close second or third probably, but it's also another great series that wraps up the events of The Faithful and the Fallen but 100 years after, with some of the descendants of the characters we see in The Faithful and the Fallen, where we get this continent-wide warfare between agents and demons. There's a child of prophecy, there's a twist on that prophecy, and the whole continent's at war with each other and being led by angels and demons. It's fantastic. There's giants riding bears. You have to check out the series. The Faithful and the Fallen is goated. All right, I'm running out of my voice. Fonda Lee, Untethered Sky. Great writing in this one. A great character. It was only 4 chapters, so we can't really give it too much. But it really showed me that Fonda is a great writer, and I'm very keen to check out the Greenbone Saga after checking it out. The Nevernight Chronicles, very solid A. Love that book series so much. A girl set on revenge goes to an assassin school, kills a bunch of people, goes into the gladiator circuit, kills a bunch of people, and then gets all out revenge. And there's pirates, and she can jump through shadows, and there's a dark, and is just bad ass. Mistborn Era 2, mid. It's okay, I guess. Then, lastly, we have one of my favorite series of all time. We have The Bound and the Broken by Ryan Cahill. This is Aragon if it was written by George R. R. Martin and John Gwynne. It is dragons, it's a rebellion fighting back against an empire, it's expansive, it's massive scope. There's novellas between the novels to fill out the world and give us backstory to our favourite characters. There's elves, dwarves, dragons, humans, all fighting, massive conflict, lots of sides, just impeccable. I love it. You gotta check it out. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've made it this far, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, and make sure you comment. Let's talk about this. Why are my opinions wrong? I really want you to tell me. And let's get some discussion going, what books I should be reading, what I didn't see in some of these books I rated low, and what I saw too much of in the books I rated high. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.